If there's one thing the internet loves more than baby animals, it's chunky ones. Whether that's because chubby animals often look the happiest or because words like chunk and absolute unit are fun to say, plump pets and chunky critters are easily among the most obsessed about topics online.
Before we begin, make sure you smash that like button, subscribe to our channel, and click the notification bell for more amazing videos.
In late 2019, one enormous feline at a Pennsylvania animal shelter officially took up the mantle of the chunkiest boy in town, and the internet just couldn't get enough of him. Shortly after rising to fame, however, this good boy's life changed forever, and his fans can't believe what he's up to now. If you've ever visited Philly's famed Lombard Street, chances are you've come across the Morris Animal Refuge. Hailed as America's first animal shelter, the Morris Refuge has housed and cared for animals since 1874. Over its 145-year history, the Morris Refuge has seen all kinds of four-legged creatures scamper through its door, including an enormous number of cats. But even so, these felines paled in comparison to one especially large bundle of fluff. Meet BJ, otherwise known as Mr. B. A domestic short-hair tabby with a brown chocolate coat, Mr. B is just 2 years old, and he also weighs 26 pounds. Given his unusual size, it's not hard to wonder if Mr. B is even a cat at all. Some have suggested that the enormous feline is actually a lynx or wildcat, though according to the Morris Refuge, Mr. B is just big-boned. Yet even on the heavier side of the spectrum, most tabbies only grow to be about 16 pounds. This makes Mr. B quite unique, a fact that the Morris Refuge was eager showcase when putting the big guy up for adoption. OMG, big boy Mr. B is a chonk. He's a chunk of a chunk. He redefines the term, the shelter tweeted along with this photo of the lovable cat. Can you guess how much he weighs? More importantly, can you give him a home? Evidently, there were more than a few pet lovers willing to make room in their hearts for Mr. B, as shortly after the post went up, Morris Refuge's website crashed from so many adoption requests. Overnight, the hefty cat had become an internet sensation. Website down due to excessive traffic. Would expect nothing less from the popularity of my president, tweeted one admirer. If I lived in the US he would be mine, responded another. Even the Philadelphia Police Department chimed in, offering to make Mr. B an officer of the law. If he doesn't get adopted, highly unlikely, he's welcome to join our K9 unit as its first feline. He is a cat, right? Member. Yet as with most online sensations, the commotion surrounding Mr. B seemed to be the product of hysteria as opposed to genuine interest in the charmingly chubby cat. Despite crashing Morris Refuge's site on several occasions, very few visitors actually donated to Mr. B's care. But what are the adoption requests? While the shelter did receive an enormous response to their post, it was nearly impossible to tell who was serious about adopting Mr. B and who had just submitted a request for kicks. Yet Morris Refuge wasn't about to let a little paperwork get in the way of finding Mr. B his forever home. The perfect owner for this adorable chunk was out there somewhere, and the folks at Morris weren't going to stop until this owner was found. And so, after sifting through more than 3,000 applications, Morris Refuge settled on placing Mr. B with one of their foster families. While the cuddly chub would have been any cat lover's dream, those at Morris felt that this family was best equipped to handle Mr. B's unique needs. Mr. B has some underlying health and behavioral issues that will need exceptional care and attention, the shelter explained. Because of this, we have placed Mr. B with one of our dedicated foster families who has experience working with cats that have behavioral and medical issues. Initially, Morris Refuge wanted to see if Mr. B could acclimate to a home environment before adopting him out to a more permanent family. But just like all the others who came across the adorable cat, the foster family just couldn't let him go. Even with 4 cats of their own, the family decided to adopt Mr. B permanently and give him the forever home he'd been searching for. Thankfully, however, the story of this famously fat cat didn't end there. Eager to continue sharing Mr. B's adventures with the world, the cat's new owners started an Instagram page dedicated to the adorable feline. Over the course of a single month, @CHonkyMRB had already amassed over 11K followers. Just as quickly as his page had accrued a following, Mr. B adjusted to his new home in no time at all. In nearly every post, Mr. B can be found lounging in a state of pure bliss, finally at peace knowing that he's found a family who loves him. To spread even more love for Mr. B, his owners even began selling t-shirts with the chubby cat's face on them. Like Mr. B himself, the shirts were a hit, and the profits from the over 800 t-shirts sold were donated directly to where it all began, the Morris Animal Refuge. By giving back to the Morris Refuge, Mr. B's owners hope to fund future adoption programs so that cats like BJ can find loving homes. Yet while animal shelters seem like a given, they aren't the only places where feline social media stars can be found. Nestled along the California coast, UC Santa Barbara is one of few universities to actually have a curriculum to match its beautiful campus. Considered one of America's public Ivy universities, UCSB is regularly ranked among the top public colleges in the world. Additionally, the Santa Barbara area also has one of the most diverse collections of wildlife in the state. Big cats, great birds, and even sea lions call the area home, some of which can even be found in the areas surrounding UCSB. But despite its beachfront views, academic pedigree, and local wildlife, there's one main reason that the UCSB campus is constantly buzzing with activity, and that reason's name is Big Boy. For 15 years this orange-black cat has called UCSB home, though his origin remains a mystery. He simply just showed up outside of the campus biology labs back in 2005, perhaps left behind by a staff member who could no longer keep him. Regardless, Big Boy has become a celebrity among those at UCSB, his courtyard home drawing dozens of visitors each day. Katie Title, an animal lover and academic advisor for the school's College of Engineering, is one such visitor, though her relationship with the cat goes beyond mere admiration. After first visiting Big Boy on her lunch breaks, Title opted to become his official caregiver when a group of concerned students brought the famous feline to a local vet. As he wasn't deemed a stray, Title volunteered to watch after him so he could remain on the UCSB campus. But caring for Big Boy isn't a one-person job. The adorable cat has a whole team of volunteers dedicated to his well-being. A feeding log posted in his courtyard ensures that Big Boy always has a full belly, and when his nails get too long, someone is always there to clip them. In fact, there are those that keep an eye on Big Boy even during the holidays. Title once returned to campus on Thanksgiving to make sure he was fed for the long weekend only to find him stocked with food and still getting regular visitors. Strangely enough, Title usually has no idea who these volunteers are or how many of them are out there. All she knows is that whenever she's worried about Big Boy, she can always find him with a fresh bag of food and a smile on his face. Yet caring for this beloved feline takes more than just a bowl of cat chow and a pair of nail clippers. Big Boy also requires regular visits to the vet, and his routine teeth cleanings, which require anesthesia, can get pricey. Title has been generous enough to pay for most of Big Boy's procedures out of pocket, though she did start a GoFundMe page to collect donations for his care. Fortunately, fans of the lovable cat have been more than willing to help out to keep Big Boy in tip-top shape. When the rainy season comes around, Big Boy's care falls into the hands of groundskeeper Carl Anderson. A UCSB employee for 25 years, Anderson sets up a homemade wooden shelter for Big Boy each winter and makes sure it's stocked with straw to keep the cold at bay. According to Anderson, there was a time at UCSB when 5 or 6 strays lived on campus, though they were all spayed or neutered shortly after being found. He believes Big Boy and a fellow campus stray named Solo are the last of these cats, making their care a top priority. But looking after Big Boy and Solo is almost like caring for family, which is why Anderson has stuck around all this time despite being eligible for retirement. Interesting enough, they kept me here, Anderson said. The cats have been my compass. Like with Anderson, Big Boy also serves to bring comfort to many of the UCSB students. Those homesick for their own pets will often visit his courtyard with a handful of treats, guaranteeing a whole lot of affection from this fluffy little guy. In a similar way, students also use Big Boy as a therapy animal, visiting him when the stress of higher education is just a little too much. Some visitors even leave notes behind, with one such message reading, "Thanks for the much-needed kitty therapy, final suck." But while Big Boy has been a regular sight at UCSB for well over a decade, Title and the cat's other caregivers acknowledge that he won't be around forever. Even now, the 16-year-old feline has started napping around his courtyard more than he used to. "I hope that when it's time, he gets to retire from campus and live comfortably," Title said of the aging cat. "But, as long as he is moving around and eating, he is living a good life and has no reason not to be here." Until his retirement comes, however, Big Boy will continue to bring joy to all those at UCSB, and Title will be right there with him. "I'm in it until he retires or I retire," the caregiver said. "He gave me a lot of lunchtime companionship, and this is my way to pay him back." The UC Santa Barbara campus isn't the only unusual place you'll find an adorable feline. In the neighboring state of Nevada, one cat is making people skirt the Silver Strip entirely for an experience far more memorable than any sit-down at the slots. When people think of Nevada, they often think of one thing: Las Vegas. The bright lights and allure of Sin City are known far and wide, yet the great state of Nevada has plenty more to offer than cocktails and poker tables. Just north of Vegas lies the Nevada Northern Railway Museum, a rail yard dedicated to the preservation of the state's rich mining and locomotive history. Set along a section of Route 50 known as the loneliest road in America, the museum became a major point of interest, though not for reasons you might think. While plenty of train enthusiasts and history buffs visit the museum for the mid-century locomotives and machinery on display, the majority of visitors come for something else entirely. Meet Dirt, the resident railway cat and official mascot of the Nevada Northern Railway Museum. An 11-year-old stray, the Ely Train Yard is the only home this adorable feline has ever known. In fact, Dirt was actually born in the depot, his mother having wandered in and delivered her litter beneath one of the trains. But when she and her babies eventually made their way from the rail yard, one frightened kitten was left behind. The yard workers attempted to coax the young orange-white cat from his hiding place, but no matter what they tried, the kitten just wouldn't budge. They knew they couldn't just leave him there to wither away, however, so the workers left a can of tuna for him every night before closing up shop. Eventually, the kitten began warming up to the men, and before they knew it, he was a regular member of their crew. The little cat's fur began to turn a dusty gray as he rolled around on the dirt floor and climbed over the trains, and so the workers called him Dirt. At a young age, Dirt learned not to lick himself clean, like normal cats, said Eric Menchie's, the museum's social media director. Being part stray, he likes to stay oily and dirty because it helps keep him tough-looking and also in a sense keeps him clean because things don't stick to his fur and bugs don't go near him. Along with his dashingly dirty good looks, the workers also felt that Dirt's personality was one of the reasons why he fit in so well at the depot. To Menchie's, it was almost like he was a rail worker stuck in a cat's body. "Dirt is pretty much one of those old-time railroaders living now as a cat," he said. "Dirt walks around the shop like he's the boss, making sure everything is working right. He walks with a sense of pride around his engine house like these are his trains, and he is proud of the men to keep them going." Yet Dirt wasn't always the well-known and beloved mascot that he is today. For a time, only those who worked and frequented the train yard and museum knew about him, and even then, he was just plain old Dirt. But with the addition of Menchie's and his social media efforts, word of the adorably filthy feline began spreading like wildfire. Surprisingly, however, Menchie's initially made no conscious effort to make Dirt a star. Instead, it happened totally by accident. "I first posted Dirt about 2 years ago, and he got some attention from people who have already met him," recalled Menchie's. "Then one day I posted Dirt on a quiet day and said Dirt wants to travel the world. Share him and tell us where you are from." It took off and his fans started building. From there, it was only a matter of time before cat lovers the world over began flocking to the museum for a chance to catch Dirt in action. However, according to Menchie's, getting the dirty little furball to make an appearance is no easy task. A curious little guy, Dirt is often attracted to the sound of people talking, so the museum encourages guests to make plenty of noise if they're looking to see him. Visitors are also told to let Dirt approach first, as he's apt to feel you out before curling up against you. "He's an old tough railroader on the outside but still a sweetheart on the inside," Menchie's remarked. "Our guided tours can last about an hour long, and It is common for Dirt to follow the entire group for the tour. Dirt's popularity has grown so much over the years that the museum started offering Dirt-themed souvenirs. With t-shirts, keychains, and even his own brand of coffee available for fans to purchase, it's almost like taking a little piece of Dirt home with you. But for Menchie's, it's not just about getting people to visit the museum or order a few cat-shaped refrigerator magnets online. He's just glad that Dirt is finally getting all the love and affection he can handle. And with a face like that, he definitely deserves it. "I do love when Dirt gets shared other places without the museum's name attached," said Menchie's. "The biggest thrill of Dirt's fame is just knowing how much joy he brings to people around the world. Seeing the kind of attention that Dirt gets so regularly, the life of a museum cat sure seems like an enviable one." Yet for one beloved pet at a small Russian gallery, his worldwide celebrity nearly cost him his life. For the most part, the guests that visit Moscow's Mikhail Bulgakov House Museum want to see a showcase of literature, a memorial to the influential author of the Soviet Union. Others visit the museum for another reason. It's not that the 200 or so daily visitors don't want to see items including postcards, books, and photos that belonged to the once banned, Kiev-born author. There's just another attraction that steals their eyes and hearts. A huge, 13-year-old, fluffy black cat named Begamo, Russian for behemoth, wanders the museum. And somehow, in a typical, nonchalant cat fashion, he weaved himself into the very fabric of the museum. His conquest started in 2005. It was then that a Russian couple, and the original owners of Begamo, discovered terrible news. Their newborn baby was allergic to the then kitten. The two, regrettably, couldn't coexist. Sent packing with nothing but the fur on his back, the then unnamed cat moved into the Mikhail Bulgakov house, where the museum director promptly gave him a tough job. The job was to lay around, be cute, act as the living embodiment of a character from Bulgakov's, famous 1930s magical realism novel, The Master and Margarita. That was no easy task. The character in The Master, a black cat named Begamo, depicted below, walked on 2 feet, played chess with the best of 'em, slammed vodka like a seasoned sailor, and tended to mouth off. Back in the museum, Begamo didn't exactly excel at the role. Instead of drinking and cursing, Begamo lays in the sunshine and goes for regular walks at about 11 a.m. Despite not meeting his job description, the museum rewards him handsomely. Free room and board await him every night, a chef specially prepares his meals, and personal veterinarians and stylists respond to his beck and meow. And he repays the museum in a big way. Begamo attracts visitors who want to pet him, pose with him, and purchase the Begamo-themed merchandise that pepper every shelf, cabinet, and wall. In just a few years, the museum became about the cat as much as it was about Bulgakov. But notoriety brought danger. On August 1, 2018, the museum received a rare message on its website. "Why have you let your cat out?" It read. The museum director, Nikolai Golubev, panicked. Nikolai took the message as a veiled threat. Still, no museum employee thought twice when Begamo walked lazily past the front desk and outside at about 11 a.m. and 2 hours later, he never showed back up. Uh-oh. Then, a woman working in a nearby office visited the museum and confirmed their worst fears. A strange woman picked up the cat while he was napping and took off down the road, towards the crowded Mayakovsky metro station. Was she fleeing? Museum employees sounded the alarm. Rushing to Facebook, they sent out a message: an employee of Bulgakov's house has been abducted. Because of the cat's enormous fan base, the news spread like wildfire. Within minutes, social media users shared the museum's declaration nearly 3,000 times. Moscow-based newspaper Moskovsky Komsomolets blared the headline, "The most famous cat of Moscow was kidnapped right in the center of the capital." Museum employees, social media users, and museum visitors wondered if the cat had been smuggled onto a train out of town. Had the heart and soul of the museum truly been snatched while taking a sunny snooze? Had Begamo been catnapped? Relief came 5 hours later. Local police called the museum and informed employees that the catnapper left the harsh-tempered grump on the steps of the Mossovet State Academic Theater just up the road. He wasn't exactly dancing with glee at his rescue. Still, police officer Vyacheslav Bulavin scooped up the cat, certifying that, on the surface, he looked unharmed. Finally, Moscow released its collective breath when a photo of the officer with Begamo turned up online. But questions remained. Who had taken the poor cat? Why? And where had the catnapper fled to? Russian authorities and leaders, okay, not really, had no answers. Begamo demanded attention, and he got it, good and bad. So how'd the cat fare from this whole debacle? Just 24 hours later, Begamo's personal veterinarian stopped by the museum, where guests and employees no doubt celebrated his return, to give the cat a look over. After all, catnapping can take a toll on a grouchy cat. The expert's conclusion? Begamo is healthy and feels great, the museum said, noting, however, that he was a bit discontent. Begamo was back to his old self. Talk about a tough-minded cat. And so, with the ordeal behind him, Begamo went back to work, snoozing in the afternoon and sticking his belly up when he very clearly did not want it rubbed. In other words, he gave the people who came to see him exactly what they wanted, and they gave him attention.